These numbers, deadlines and hard facts, which most retirees quietly ignore, are a decade of decision making if you are between 45 and 65. To be honest, I may be more worried than your financial advisor, because the retirement data in the United States is really worrying now. Start with the numbers. That should stop you. According to Northwestern Mutual, 2024 Planning and Progress Study, Americans believe they need $1.46 million to retire comfortably, a figure that has climbed 15% in a year and 53% higher than in 2020. According to the same study, what do Americans really have? The average was $88,400, not $880,000. The $88,400 gap is a whole statistical problem. Before you're convinced you're doing better than average, look at the people closest to retirement. According to the Federal Reserve's Consumer Finance Survey, the median retirement savings of Americans aged 55 to 64 are about $185,000, while the median retirement savings of Americans aged 65 to 74 are about $200,000. The GAA found a more sobering picture. About half of households 55 and older have no retirement savings at all. Zero. These people are thought to be out of work for 5, 10, or 15 years forever. The stark truth is that, for starters, anyone still waiting to retire may underestimate the true cost of retirement. And the biggest cause of this miscalculation is healthcare. Fidelity's 2024 estimates suggest that 65-year-olds who retire today may need about $165,000 in after-tax savings to pay only for healthcare, climbing to about $330,000 for a couple. That is where things get worse, because long-term care is not even in that calculation. About 70% of 65-year-olds will need some form of long-term care throughout their lives, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, while Medicare typically does not include custody. Genworth's Cost of Care Survey shows that the median annual cost of private housing in nursing homes in 2023 is about $116,800, one room a year. The second truth that really hurts is that you may have no choice when you retire. According to one survey after another by the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies, about 40% of employees plan to retire after age 70 or not at all, which sounds like a plan unless you look at what is actually happening. The Employee Welfare Institute has consistently found that nearly half of retirees end up retiring early because of health problems, layoffs, or the need to care for their families. So for about half the population, the decision was made for them. This leads directly to Social Security, because some of you already think you just need to rely on it. Let us be honest, among Americans 65 and older, about 40% of their income depends on Social Security, and the average monthly retirement benefit at the beginning of 2024 is calculated to be about $1,907, or about $23,000 a year. Can you really live on this? What is the cost of medical care? In which city? No one wants to say it out loud. By 2033, Social Security trustees reported that pension and survivors' insurance trusts would be exhausted, and that unless Congress acted before that, benefits would be paid at 77% of the plan. This is not conspiracy theory. That is the government's own prediction. Let's talk about strategy, because if you are in your 40s, 50s, 60s or below, the study does point to specific measures that work. Start with your Social Security claim math, because this leverage is more easily ignored than any other. Applying at 62 is allowed, but your benefits are permanently reduced. For people born in 1960 or later, the full retirement age is 67. Before age 70, according to the NSA's own data, your monthly welfare is about 77% higher than your 62-year-old application, 0.77% for the same person, the same work experience, but with different dates on the form. If your health is reasonable and you have any income to make up for the gap, procrastination is the highest financial return for most older Americans. Next, use a catch-up donation meeting designed for people in your situation. In 2024, the 401k ceiling was $23,000, with an additional $7,500 for people aged 50 and older, and the base climbed to $23,500 in 2025. Secure 2.0 also introduced a new super capture feature for people ages 60 to 63, worth up to $11,250, above the standard IRA limit of $7,000, plus a capture feature of $1,000 if those resources are underused in the highest earning years. The most powerful catch-up tool in the tax code is on the table. Third, really understand the 4% rule. William Bengen, who made the proposal as early as 1994, said himself that I quote him as saying, "The 4% rule is never a rule. This is just a finding of my research." He later suggested that, in most cases, the safety figure might actually be closer to 4.5% or even 4.7%. Morningstar's researchers took the opposite direction, lowering their estimate for 2021 to about 3.3%, and then revising it to about 4% in 2023 as yields rose. The honest answer is that no one knows the perfect exit rate, because much depends on how the market performs in the first few years of your retirement. This phenomenon, known as income sequence risk, is a quiet killer of retirement plans, because retirement into a downturn can permanently damage the portfolio, even if the average return on full retirement is good. Now, I want to share something to the point. Teresa Ghilarducci, an economist who has studied retirement inequality, bluntly called the 401k Plan A failed experiment. Whether you agree with her or not, the data supports some of her views. The shift from pensions to 401k plans in the United States began in the late 1970s and accelerated after the Pension Protection Act of 2006, effectively giving every worker a second job managing his retirement. Vanguard et al. Our America Saves 2024 report shows the results. Participants 65 and older had an average 401k balance of about $272,000, compared with a median SAT of $88,000. The gap between the average and the median says it all, because a few high savers are pulling up the average, and typical workers are far from where they need to be. Susie Orman has emphasized this for years. And if you save $20, $30, $50, even $100,000, and you think that is enough, that is not enough. You may not like listening, and I don't particularly like speaking, but math is the same as hers. Let's talk about debt, because many retirees weaken themselves in debt. About 70% of households aged 65 to 74 are in debt, according to Federal Reserve data. This is important because having a mortgage, car loan or credit card balance at retirement means you are trying to finance a fixed income lifestyle with variable rate liabilities. Dave Ramsey's blunt and candid advice is to write off debt before retirement and invest 15% of his income in retirement savings while working. You don't have to agree with every point of Mr. Ramsey's argument to see the math of debt-free retirement completely change your survival. This is where I want you to shrink, because the timing of all this is very important. From 2024 to 2027, we are experiencing what Alliance for Life Income researchers call the peak age of 65, during which about 4.1 million Americans will turn 65 each year, equivalent to about 11,200 a day. This is the largest wave in American history to touch the traditional retirement age, which directly conflicts with the Social Security cliff in 2033, rising medical costs, longer lifespans, and the inefficient use of 401k intermediaries. It is a storm, and anyone standing on Windows 45 to 65 is in its path. Takeout is not hopeless. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRI, Retirement Confidence survey found that only about half of employees actually sit down to calculate what they need after retirement, which means that the most powerful thing you can do this week, not this year, is statistics. What do you have? How much will Social Security pay you at 62, 67, and 70? How much do you pay for your medical care, and what are your real numbers? Pew Research reported in late 2023 that about 19% of Americans 65 and older are still working, almost double the number 35 years ago, with some choosing this path and many not. Here is a cruel and honest summary. Retirement in the United States has quietly become a do-it-yourself project that most people can't do, and the system won't save intermediate savers. Your full retirement age is fixed. Your Social Security math is knowable. Your supplemental contributions are now available, and your healthcare costs are predictable. The only remaining variable is whether you actually looked at the numbers and took action on them, or whether you kept waiting because, statistically speaking, waiting was what got most of your peers into the situation we just spent 10 minutes discussing. If it works, click subscribe. The following video covers specific Social Security claims, strategies, that can add tens of thousands of dollars to your lifetime benefits. And most people are wrong at first try.